The crack of her palm against my cheek ricocheted off the marble walls of the church vestibule like a gunshot. The sting radiated across my face, but something else spread through my chest, a cold, crystalline clarity. Standing there in my grandmother's borrowed pearls, with my dignity in shards at my feet, I understood in that instant that my mother-in-law, Victoria Blackthorne, had just made the gravest miscalculation of her life. She simply hadn't realized it yet. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm Delilah Pham, 29 years old, daughter of a fisherman and a seamstress, and this is the story of how my wedding day became the most exquisite revenge I never had to plan. Before I continue, please drop a like and comment below. Your support means everything to me. Thank you. The morning began the way every bride deserves, champagne flutes clinking with my bridesmaids, my mother's happy tears threatening to ruin her mascara, and the particular kind of nervous excitement that makes your stomach feel like it's filled with butterflies doing synchronized swimming. 3 years with Marcus, 1 year engaged, and despite his mother's relentless campaign of microaggressions, the comments about my Vietnamese heritage delivered with a smile, the questions about my small-town upbringing asked as if they were inspecting a used car, we'd made it. We'd actually made it to the altar. Or so I believed. Victoria Blackthorne was Boston old money, the kind of woman who still referred to her household employees as the staff and operated under the firm conviction that anyone who didn't summer on Martha's Vineyard might as well be homeless. From the moment Marcus brought me home, she'd made her position clear. I was not now, nor would I ever be, good enough for her precious son. But here's what growing up with nothing teaches you. You learn to smile through anything. You learn to nod and stay gracious while someone tries to break you, because survival has taught you that the storm always passes, and the real question is who's still standing when it does. The first crack appeared when my wedding dress vanished from the bridal suite. Not misplaced, vanished. The simple David's bridal garment bag I'd hung so carefully the night before had evaporated like morning fog. My maid of honor, Jenny, found it an hour later crammed behind the church's ancient boiler, drenched in what laboratory analysis would later confirm was expensive Cabernet. Accidents happen, the wedding coordinator offered, though her eyes told a different story entirely. Then the flowers arrived, if you could dignify them with that name. Instead of the white roses and baby's breath I'd painstakingly selected, someone had delivered funeral arrangements, actual funeral arrangements, complete with a banner screaming, in deepest sympathy, in silver block letters. The florist, when contacted, swore on her grandmother's grave that a woman named V. Blackthorne had called personally to revise the order. But the real tell? Cassandra, Marcus's younger sister, Victoria's golden child, the family's designated heir to the Blackthorne toxicity, kept materializing everywhere I went, phone in hand, whispering, watching. She'd been trying to pry Marcus away from me since our second date, probably because I'd accidentally caught her helping herself to their father's wallet at dinner, and she knew that I knew exactly what I'd seen. Jenny pulled me aside while I attempted to salvage my hair after the stylist, accidentally, used the wrong products that had transformed my usually sleek black hair into something resembling a bird's nest that had survived a hurricane. Delilah. Jenny's voice dropped low. I overheard Victoria at the rehearsal dinner. She was holding court with her country club friends, telling them she had a plan, a test, to determine if you were really worthy of the Blackthorne name. I studied my reflection. My hair looked like a science experiment gone horribly wrong. What kind of test? The kind designed to prove you're a gold digger, in front of everyone. Something shifted inside me then. You know that moment when you realize you can either let yourself be the victim of someone else's story, or you can pick up the pen and start writing your own chapter. I chose to write. With my dress destroyed and the clock screaming toward ceremony time, I had no choice but to wear my grandmother's wedding dress, a beautiful but distinctly 1960s creation that altered my entire silhouette, combined with my catastrophic hair, hidden now under an emergency veil I'd grabbed in desperation, and the heavy vintage makeup the backup artist applied to camouflage my stress-induced hives. I looked nothing like the woman Victoria had seen in photographs. That's when it hit me. Victoria had only ever met me through disastrous video calls where the connection mysteriously failed. She'd insisted on audio only for half of them, claiming she didn't trust modern technology. The woman literally had no idea what I actually looked like in person. Jenny. I grabbed her arm. I need you to do something insane. Her eyes widened as I explained. You want me to pretend to be the wedding coordinator? Just for a little while. I need to know exactly what she's planning. The universe, it seemed, approved of my improvisation. At that precise moment, the actual wedding coordinator received news of a family emergency and had to flee. I stepped into her sensible flats, thank God we wore the same size, grabbed her clipboard, and transformed into someone else entirely. Victoria held court in the church's main hall, surrounded by her society friends, all dressed as if they were attending a royal wedding rather than a modest ceremony in suburban Maryland. She wore white, of course she did, in a gown more elaborate than anything I could have afforded, dripping in enough diamonds to fund a small nation's education budget. Where is that incompetent girl? She announced to no one in particular. The coordinator, the bride, anyone with a functioning brain? I approached, clipboard clutched like armor. Mrs. Blackthorne? I'm filling in for the coordinator. How may I assist you? She looked through me, not at me, through me, as if I were a piece of furniture that had inconveniently learned to speak. Finally, someone who might actually prove useful. Unlike that gold-digging nobody my son insists on marrying. She laughed, and her friends tittered along like trained parrots. I've been telling everyone she's after the family money. Vietnamese, you know, they're all looking for green cards and bank accounts. My fingers gripped the clipboard so hard I thought the wood might splinter, but I kept my voice steady. Professional. I'm sure your son loves her very much. Love? Victoria scoffed. Love doesn't pay mortgages, dear. That's why I've arranged a little surprise. Cassandra discovered the girl has been stealing from Marcus already. We have proof. Well, manufactured proof. But who's going to question it when I present it during the ceremony? One of her friends, a woman whose face had been pulled so tight she wore an expression of permanent surprise, gasped with delight. Victoria, you're positively brilliant. But what if Marcus becomes angry? Oh, please. Victoria waved a diamond-laden hand. My son always comes back to mother. Always has. Always will. Once he sees what kind of trash he nearly married, he'll thank me. I excused myself to the bathroom and texted Jenny everything. She responded with a string of emojis that would have made a sailor blush, followed by, Cassandra is currently attempting to seduce Tom, Marcus's best man, in the coat closet. This had officially become a soap opera, and we hadn't even started the ceremony. When I returned, Victoria had progressed to showing her friends a list, an actual laminated list titled Requirements for a Blackthorn Bride, featuring gems like, must have attended an Ivy League institution, must be able to trace ancestry to the Mayflower, and my personal favorite, must know the difference between shrimp forks and oyster forks. I nearly laughed. Nearly. Instead, I watched as she mistook one of the guests, a blonde woman in an expensive suit, for me and launched her approach. The poor woman looked bewildered as Victoria began grilling her about her intentions with Marcus. Playing coordinator gave me a front row seat to Victoria's escalating desperation. As ceremony time approached, she couldn't understand why the bride hadn't appeared. The blonde woman had fled after Victoria accused her of being a social climbing imposter, which, in fairness, was half correct, since she was an imposter, just not the one Victoria sought. Where is she? Victoria hissed at me for the 10th time. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes. I'll check the bridal suite, I offered, hiding my smile. But first, I detoured past the coat closet where Jenny had reported the Cassandra situation. Sure enough, there she was, pressed against Tom like a discount romance novel cover come to life, her hands exploring territory that definitely didn't belong to her on her brother's wedding day. Oh, I exclaimed, making sure my voice carried. Terribly sorry to interrupt. Tom leapt back as if electrocuted, his face matching the funeral roses. Cassandra, however, fixed me with those cold blackthorn eyes. Mind your own business. Help, she sneered. Of course, Miss Blackthorn, though you might want to know your mother is looking for you. Something about the plan. Her eyes lit up with malicious glee. Oh, right, the proof about that gold digger's theft. I planted it in her purse earlier. Mother's going to expose her right at the altar. It's going to be absolutely delicious. Tom stared at her, horror dawning. Cassandra, what are you talking about? Delilah would never steal anything. Oh, Tom, Cassandra purred. attempting to sidle back against him. "You're so naive. That's what I adore about you." But Tom was already backing away. "You're insane. Both of you. You and your mother. Marcus deserves so much better than this." He stormed off. And Cassandra turned her fury on me. "You stupid little nobody. You ruined everything." That word, stupid, it would come back to haunt them all. If you're enjoying this story, please take just a second to hit that subscribe button and like this video. It truly helps me create more content for you, and honestly, your support keeps me going. Thank you so much. I returned to Victoria with news that the bride was preparing and would descend shortly. She paced now, her white dress swishing dramatically with each turn, the church filled with guests, and I could see Marcus at the altar, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, though tension tightened his jaw. "This is absolutely ridiculous," Victoria exploded. "What kind of classless girl arrives late to her own wedding?" Her mother-in-law, a sprightly 85-year-old named Eleanor, wheeled forward in her chair. "The same kind of girl who has to contend with your nonsense. Victoria, sit down before you give yourself a stroke." "Mother, please, not now." "Oh, I think now is absolutely perfect timing." Eleanor looked at me and winked, actually winked. "You look familiar. Dear, have we met?" Before I could answer, Victoria grabbed my arm. "You go find that bride this instant, or I'll ensure you never work in this state again." "Of course, Mrs. Blackthorne." I headed to the bridal suite where Jenny waited, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. "Delilah, you're not going to believe this. I found something in Victoria's purse." She held up a receipt for the funeral flowers, for the wine that destroyed my dress, for a payment to the hairstylist to make mistakes, all paid for with Victoria's credit card, all bearing her signature. "We're keeping this," I said, tucking it into my bra. "Evidence." 5 minutes to ceremony. Someone called. "Showtime." I maintained my coordinator disguise as the ceremony began, stationed at the back of the church, clipboard in hand, appearing to check important tasks. Victoria had positioned herself in the front row, her white dress gleaming like a beacon of narcissism. Cassandra sat beside her, practically vibrating with anticipation. The music swelled. The bridesmaids began their walk. Jenny winked at me as she passed. Then came the moment, the bride's entrance. Except I wasn't walking down that aisle. Not yet. Victoria's head whipped around like something from a horror film. "Where is she?" she hissed, loud enough for the first 5 rows to hear. I approached calmly. "There seems to be a small delay, Mrs. Blackthorne." That's when it happened. She rose, her face purple with rage, and slapped me across the face, hard. The crack echoed through the church like thunder through a canyon. "You stupid, incompetent fool. You had one job, to get that gold digger down this aisle so I could expose her. One job." The entire church gasped. The organist stopped mid-note. In that silence, you could have heard a pin drop from the balcony. And then Marcus's voice cut through the air like ice. "Mother, what did you just do?" He stood at the altar, but he'd seen everything. The microphone on his lapel, the one for the wedding video, had captured every word and broadcast it through the church's sound system. Every single, damning word. Victoria turned, her face cycling through rage to confusion in record time. "Marcus, darling, I was simply disciplining the help. This coordinator is completely incompetent. She can't even locate your bride." "Mother." Marcus walked down from the altar with slow, deliberate steps. "I'd like you to meet someone." He reached for my hand, and I took it, pulling off the emergency veil, letting my hair fall free. The vintage makeup couldn't hide who I was anymore, not with Marcus beside me. "Mother, meet my bride, the woman you just assaulted, the woman you just called stupid, the woman you've been plotting against all morning." Victoria's face drained from purple to white so fast I thought she might faint. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish discovering it couldn't breathe air. Behind her, Cassandra looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. But, Victoria stammered. "Oh, there's more," Marcus continued, his voice still deathly calm. "Tom told me about Cassandra's attempt to seduce him, the fake evidence you planted, the destroyed dress, the funeral flowers, everything." Eleanor wheeled herself forward. "I told you, Victoria. I told you 40 years ago when you married my son, money doesn't make you better than anyone. But you never listened. The microphone was still on. Every guest in the church had heard everything. 300 people, including Victoria's entire country club, her charity board friends, and most importantly, the Blackthorn family board of directors. This isn't what it looks like. Victoria tried, but her voice had lost all its power. It's exactly what it looks like. I finally spoke, my cheeks still stinging but my voice steady as stone. You tried to destroy my wedding because I don't fit your narrow, bigoted view of who deserves your son. But here's what you didn't count on. Marcus loves me. His father loves me. Your mother-in-law loves me. This family chose me. Mrs. Blackthorn. The question is, what are they going to choose about you? Marcus's father, Richard, rose from his seat. He'd been silent until now, but the look on his face said absolutely everything. Victoria, we need to talk. Now. Richard, darling, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You assaulted our daughter-in-law in a church in front of 300 witnesses while being recorded. The wedding videographer, God bless his soul, gave me a thumbs up from the back. He'd captured it all. The church had transformed into a courtroom, and Victoria stood trial. Marcus remained beside me, his hand in mine, and I could feel the controlled fury radiating from him like heat from a forge. 300 witnesses, he repeated slowly, letting each word land like a hammer blow, including Judge Patterson, Senator Williams, and oh, look, isn't that Channel 7's news anchor in row 12? Victoria's perfectly composed face finally cracked. She looked around wildly, seeing camera phones raised everywhere. In 2025, everyone documents everything, and her spectacular meltdown was about to go viral. Marcus, sweetheart, let's discuss this privately, she pleaded. Privately? Eleanor laughed from her wheelchair. That's rich. Victoria, you just assaulted this poor girl publicly. You called her stupid publicly. You planned to humiliate her publicly. What's wrong? Don't like the spotlight when it's showing your true colors? That's when Cassandra made her fatal error. She stood up, pointing at me with a shaking finger. She's still a thief. I have proof. Check her purse. The words hung in the air like smoke. I smiled, slowly, deliberately. Cassandra, I said, my voice sweet as honey, I'd be delighted to empty my purse, right here, right now, in front of everyone. The silence that followed was absolutely perfect. You mean the fake evidence you planted? Tom's voice cut through the tension like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. He'd stepped forward from the groomsmen's section, and the look on his face could have frozen hell. The evidence you told me about while trying to shove your tongue down my throat in the coat closet? The collective gasp from the congregation sounded like a windstorm sweeping through the church. Cassandra's face underwent a remarkable transformation, from pale to crimson in approximately 1.5 seconds. That's a lie. The screech that escaped her lips was almost ultrasonic. Really? Jenny stepped forward, calm as still water, holding up her phone like a prosecutor presenting Exhibit A. Because I have a recording of you admitting it. Funny how thin those closet doors are, almost like they were designed to expose secrets. Marcus turned to his sister, and the disgust in his eyes could have curdled milk from across the room. You tried to seduce my best friend, to create drama, at my wedding. It was Mother's idea. Cassandra threw Victoria under the bus with such velocity there were probably skid marks on the church floor. I did no such thing, Victoria protested, but her voice had lost its imperial authority. It sounded thin now, reedy, the sound of someone watching their empire crumble. That's when I played my ace. I pulled the receipt from my bra, that magical receipt Jenny had found, the one that would have made a forensic accountant weep with joy. Really? Then why'd I have receipts for funeral flowers, for the wine that destroyed my dress, for the payment to my hairstylist to sabotage me? All with your signature, Victoria, all with your elegant, poisonous signature. Richard took the receipt, studied it, the paper trembled slightly in his hands, and when he looked up at his wife of 40 years, his expression wasn't anger, it was something far worse, disappointment so profound it seemed to age him a decade in seconds. 40 years, his voice was quiet, but in the silence of that church, it carried like a bell. 40 years, Victoria, I've watched you wound people with your snobbery, I've watched you alienate friends, family, anyone who didn't meet your impossible standards. I told myself it was just your way, that beneath it all, You had a heart. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice cracked. But this, attacking our son's happiness, assaulting his bride in a house of God, we're done. Richard, you don't mean that. For the first time, I heard genuine fear in Victoria's voice. The divorce papers will be filed Monday. The announcement landed like a bomb. Victoria Blackthorne, society queen, arbiter of who was worthy and who was worthless, was being divorced. Publicly, humiliatingly, in front of everyone who mattered to her. But Marcus wasn't finished. He stepped forward, still holding my hand, and I felt the tremor in his fingers. Mother, you're banned from our reception. You're banned from our lives until you can offer a genuine apology, and more importantly, until you've proven you've changed. And Cassandra, the same applies to you. You can't do this. Victoria's shriek echoed off the stained glass windows. I'm your mother. No. Marcus's voice was quiet but absolute. A mother loves her children. A mother wants them to be happy. A mother doesn't spend 3 years trying to destroy the best thing that ever happened to them because of her own prejudices. You gave birth to me, but you've never been my mother. Not really. Eleanor started a slow clap. It began as a single, deliberate sound, clap, cutting through the silence like a heartbeat. Then someone else joined. Then another. Within seconds, the entire church erupted in applause as 2 ushers approached Victoria and Cassandra. The ushers, I noticed, were barely suppressing grins. They looked like men who'd just won the lottery and been asked to escort the losing ticket out. As Victoria passed me, escorted, practically dragged, she managed one last hiss. This isn't over. Oh, but it is. Eleanor's voice rang out like a bell. She'd wheeled herself into the aisle, blocking Victoria's path. By the way, Victoria, remember that family trust fund you're so proud of? The one my late husband established? Guess who controls it now that you're getting divorced? Spoiler alert, it's me. And I'm feeling extraordinarily generous toward my new granddaughter-in-law. Victoria's scream of rage echoed down the street long after the church doors swung shut behind her. With the toxic duo expelled, something remarkable happened. The atmosphere in the church transformed as visibly as if someone had thrown open every window after decades of stuffiness. People exhaled. Shoulders dropped from ears. The light streaming through the stained glass seemed warmer somehow. Richard straightened his tie, ran a hand through his hair, and turned to the Reverend. Well, that was long overdue. Reverend, I believe we have a wedding to conduct? The Reverend, a weathered man who'd probably seen everything in his 40 years of ministry but nothing quite like this, nodded slowly. Indeed we do. Though perhaps the bride would like a moment to compose herself? I touched my still stinging cheek and laughed. Actually laughed. The sound bubbling up from somewhere genuine and unexpected. Are you kidding me? This is the best I've felt in 3 years. Let's get married. I changed quickly into a simple white sundress Jenny had thoughtfully brought as a backup, nothing elaborate. But it was clean. And more importantly, it was mine. As I walked down that aisle for real this time, I noticed faces I'd never truly seen before. Marcus's cousins, whom Victoria had deemed too common for family dinners. His college friends she'd dismissed as riffraff. His co-workers she'd ignored at every company function. They were all smiling at me, not the polished society smiles I'd grown accustomed to, but real ones, genuine ones. When I reached Marcus, he cupped my face in his hands, his thumb grazing the spot where his mother's palm had connected with my cheek. I'm so sorry, he whispered. Don't be. I covered his hands with mine. You just gave me the best wedding gift imaginable, a life without their toxicity. The ceremony itself was beautiful in its simplicity. No elaborate unity candle ceremony that Victoria had insisted upon. No pretentious vows she'd tried to ghostwrite for us. Just Marcus and me, promising to love, honor, and protect each other from crazy relatives and everything else life might throw our way. When the Reverend said, "You may kiss your bride," Marcus dipped me like we were in a 1940s film noir, and the church erupted in genuine joy. As we walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Eleanor called out, "Reception's on me. Open bar. Let's celebrate the liberation." The reception was everything Victoria would have hated, and therefore absolutely perfect. The DJ played actual music people could dance to, not the string quartet she'd hired that I'd happily cancelled. The food came from my favorite local restaurant, comfort food, soul food, Food that didn't require a dictionary to order, not the pretentious French cuisine Victoria had tried to force upon us. And the speeches? Oh, the speeches were glorious. Tom stood first, raising his glass. I've known Marcus for 15 years. I've watched him slowly suffocate under his mother's expectations, like a plant being systematically deprived of sunlight. Today, I watched him breathe freely for the first time. Delilah, you didn't just marry him, you saved him. Jenny went next, eyes bright with happy tears. Delilah is the strongest woman I know. She took 3 years of abuse with grace that would have made saints jealous. But today she showed that grace doesn't mean weakness. It means choosing your battles. And girl, you didn't just win, you conquered. But the showstopper was Eleanor. She wheeled herself to the microphone, adjusted it downward, and surveyed the crowd with the twinkling eyes of someone who'd waited decades for this moment. I'd like to tell you all a story about my daughter-in-law, Victoria. She paused masterfully. No, not that one. She pointed at me with a grin that could have lit up Boston. The other one. The one who just got ejected from this wedding like a drunk fan at a baseball game. The room howled. 40 years ago, Victoria married my son for his money. Oh, she called it love. But I knew better. I watched her systematically alienate everyone who truly cared about Richard, his siblings, his oldest friends, even me for a while. She built a prison of propriety and locked him inside. But today my grandson broke free. And Victoria learned that money without family is just paper. Worthless, lonely paper. She raised her champagne glass to me, to Delilah, who showed us that love is stronger than snobbery, that kindness beats cruelty, and that sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, not the ones we're born into. The toast was so beautiful half the room was crying, the other half was recording it on their phones, determined to preserve this moment forever. The reception continued into the night, and with each passing hour, more stories emerge. Marcus's aunt revealed how Victoria had uninvited her from Christmas for 10 years, because she'd married a plumber. His cousin shared how Victoria had tried to sabotage his small restaurant by writing anonymous bad reviews online. He laughed about it now, slightly tipsy on Eleanor's free champagne. Joke's on her. My customers rallied, and I ended up in the Boston Globe as a must-visit spot. Best thing she ever did for me. Around midnight, the wedding videographer approached me. Mrs. Blackthorne, the new Mrs. Blackthorne, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never witnessed anything like today. Would you mind if I kept a copy for my portfolio? With your permission. Naturally. Keep it, I said. Share it. Let it serve as a warning to toxic mothers-in-law everywhere. What we didn't know was that someone had already shared it. A guest had live-streamed the entire confrontation on TikTok. By the time we cut the cake, a glorious grocery store sheet cake Jenny had grabbed to replace Victoria's 5-tier monstrosity, the video had accumulated 2 million views. The comments were comedy gold. The grandmother is my hero. Did she really wear white to her son's wedding and slap the bride? In a church? This is better than any reality show I've ever watched. Team Delilah, where do I order my t-shirt? Marcus's phone began ringing incessantly. Board members from the family company, business associates, people who'd endured years of Victoria's particular brand of cruelty, all calling to express support and share their own horror stories. Did you know, Richard said, sliding into a seat beside us at the head table, that she once made my secretary cry for using yellow post-it notes? Said yellow was too cheerful for serious business. Remember when she tried to have the neighbors evicted because their daughter practiced violin? Eleanor added. Claimed it lowered property values. Oh, what about the time she called the police on those Girl Scouts selling cookies? Marcus's uncle chimed in, claimed they were loitering. 7-year-olds. Each story painted a darker portrait, a woman who'd terrorized everyone in her orbit for decades, protected only by her husband's money and social status. But not anymore. Near the end of the reception, Richard pulled me aside. His eyes were wet. Delilah, I owe you an apology. I should have stood up to her years ago. I let my fear of confrontation hurt my son. And worse, I let it hurt you. Can you forgive a foolish old man? There's nothing to forgive, I said, and meant every word. You stood up when it mattered most. I'm setting up a trust fund for you and Marcus. Victoria can't touch it. It's my way of welcoming you to the real family, the one we're building without her. Around 2 o'clock a.m., as the reception wound down, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Cassandra, I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. I showed Marcus. He took my phone and typed back, no, we fixed everything, and yes, we're incredibly happy. Then he blocked the number. 6 months. That's all it took for Victoria Blackthorne's carefully constructed world to collapse entirely. The video of the wedding slap transcended viral. It became a cultural moment. Someone made a remix. There were memes. Don't be a Victoria entered the lexicon as shorthand for entitled mother-in-law behavior. Dr. Phil's producers called. We declined. But Victoria didn't. Mistake number 1. She went on national television to defend herself, and every word she spoke dug her grave deeper. She actually said, and I quote, I was protecting my son from gold diggers. To which Dr. Phil responded, ma'am, you literally wore white to your son's wedding and assaulted the bride in a church. The audience booed her off the stage. Meanwhile, Marcus and I were thriving. Without his mother's constant criticism and interference, he was promoted to CEO of the family company, a position Victoria had been blocking for years to maintain control. Richard stepped back to an advisory role and spent his time traveling with his new girlfriend, a delightful woman named Susan who owned a food truck. Victoria would have been horrified. It was magnificent. Eleanor moved in with us temporarily, and honestly, it was the best arrangement imaginable. She taught me her secret pasta sauce recipe and shared stories about Richard before Victoria got her claws in him. He used to play jazz saxophone, she told me one evening, a faraway look in her eyes. Can you imagine? Victoria made him sell it, said it was undignified for a Blackthorne. We bought him a new saxophone for Christmas, he cried. The extended family began hosting regular gatherings, real ones, not the stuffy formal dinners Victoria used to mandate. Potlucks where people actually laughed. Game nights that grew competitive but remained fun. Holiday celebrations where children could be children instead of miniature adults representing the Blackthorne brand. Then came the day Victoria reached out. She'd lost everything in the divorce. Richard's lawyers had ironclad documentation of her financial abuse and manipulation. Her society friends had abandoned her like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Even Cassandra had moved to California to find herself. Translation, to hide from the shame. Victoria was living in a studio apartment, working as a receptionist at a dental office. The irony was exquisite. The woman who'd called everyone else the help was now, in fact, helping. She called Marcus, not me, but he put it on speaker. I need help. Her voice sounded different, smaller. For the first time in 3 years, she sounded human, broken, but human. Why should we help you? Marcus asked. A long pause. Then, because I was wrong about everything. About Delilah. About what matters. About what family means. I lost everything trying to control everyone. And I ended up alone. That's not an apology, I said quietly. You're right, Delilah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the slap. For the names. For trying to destroy your wedding. For 3 years of trying to break you. You're the best thing that ever happened to my son. And I was too blinded by my own prejudices to see it. It sounded rehearsed, but also genuine, like she'd practiced it 100 times, trying to get it right. What do you want, Mother? Marcus asked. Just to not be erased. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I don't deserve to be in your lives. But maybe someday, could I meet my grandchild? Oh, right. Did I mention I was 6 months pregnant? Eleanor had already knitted approximately 700 baby blankets in preparation. Marcus looked at me. The decision was mine. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to therapy, real therapy. Not some life coach your country club recommended. You're going to work on your issues. All of them. The racism, the classism, the narcissism. Then after a year, we'll have coffee. 1 coffee. And we'll see. That's more than I deserve, she whispered. Yes, it is, Marcus said. Don't waste this chance. She didn't. A year later, we had that coffee. She showed up in regular clothes, not her usual designer armor. She asked about my family, my culture, my dreams, and actually listened to the answers. When our daughter was born, she was allowed to visit for 1 hour, supervised, baby steps. The last family wedding was Richard's to Susan. Victoria attended as a regular guest, sitting in the back, dressed appropriately in blue. She didn't make a scene, didn't try to control anything, didn't make it about her progress. During the reception, she approached me. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For being strong enough to break the cycle. For showing Marcus he deserved better. For giving me a chance to change." Then she walked away. No drama, no demands, just acknowledgement. Marcus pulled me onto the dance floor, our daughter balanced on his hip. "You know what the best part is?" he said. "What?" "Our daughter will never know that version of her grandmother. She'll only know whoever Victoria becomes from here." As we danced, surrounded by chosen family and blood family who'd chosen us back, I realized something. That slap had been a gift. It was the moment everything toxic in our lives got exposed to sunlight and withered away. Sometimes the worst moments become the best turning points, and sometimes karma shows up to your wedding wearing white and ends up leaving in disgrace. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. Share your own mother-in-law stories in the comments. I promise to read every single one. Your support means everything to me. Thank you.